This winter, fly Minneapolis-St. Paul to Ireland with Aer Lingus. Fly direct to Dublin and enjoy Ireland's warm hospitality, incredible food, history and culture. Smart says fill your heart with Ireland. Smart flies, Aer Lingus. Book now at airlingus.com.
What's up? Thanks for listening to Brand New Murder Monday. It's Steve-O. And like I've said before, we have an Instagram, all that kind of stuff, and a Facebook fan page. And I'm trying to put up a lot of like weird, random stuff that's kind of murder story related. So make sure you check that stuff out. And also, please do me a favor, do me a solid and subscribe and like and all that kind of stuff, the podcast. Also, we kind of messed around with the podcasting tool. So if there's any problems or you're not getting it right or where you usually listen, then let me know. You can send me an email, steveo@kdwb.com, which is like the easiest. So anywho. So let's get into it. Brand new Murder Monday from Down Under. We all know someone that if we didn't know deep down that they were a good person, we'd kill them. Maybe it's a cousin or your sister, the person that just makes choices that you really don't agree with. You know, that sister that's more interested in going out drinking than finishing her degree. But she isn't all that bad. She's got tons of redeeming qualities, right? Murder doesn't happen just to completely innocent people. Murder doesn't care if you're good or bad. It just happens. On the opposite side of the world sits the country of Australia, and in one of the rural areas of Victoria, Australia, lived a motorcycle enthusiast that followed his own rules and marched to his own beat. He was a bad boy. Loved booze, drugs, and motorcycles. Rode that motorcycle like a bat out of hell, with no fear for the hairpin turns in the Australian outback. He's 28-year-old Paul Snabel. And while from the outside he seemed dangerous and reckless, which he was also known as a openly affectionate and caring person for his friends and family. Paul is the guy that if you didn't love him, you'd kill him. He has a magnetic personality. He was something special. He also had a way of making you feel included, and while he made plenty of horrible life choices, this free spirit lived a life with more laughter than anger. In November of 1989, Paul Snabel attended a friend's party, and after drinking and doing drugs, got up and left. The next day, he returned to the house where the party was with his girlfriend, Karen. He was there to help clean, but he, of course, proceeded to get drunk, and after being nothing short of a nuisance, Karen told him to leave. So he jumped on his motorcycle and drove off. Paul was the kind of guy that loved riding his bike, so it was no surprise that he would jump on and take off for a couple of days, but he always came back. This time it was different. Something seemed wrong. His roommate contacted police after he didn't return home for over a week. The last time the roommate saw him was when he left that party. Had Paul's vices and reckless behavior finally caught up with him? Had he driven off a cliff after losing control? It was hard to feel bad for a guy as reckless as Paul, but police were still interested in figuring out what did happen. Then a group of kids, out just messing around in the bush, found pieces of a motorcycle. A few days after that, a nearby farmer found a red Yamaha gas tank, along with small plastic bags. Inside the bags were some of the smaller electric parts from a Yamaha. Police were quickly collecting pieces of the same motorcycle that just happened to be Paul Snabel's prized possession. Police knew that there was something off. This bike had been systematically dismantled. So if there wasn't an accident, why would Paul have destroyed his beloved bike? As detectives looked deeper into Paul's last known movements, they uncovered a tangled web of lies and deceit, which would become near impossible to untangle if it weren't for one small piece of evidence. What that was, next on Murder Monday. In a remote area of Victoria, Australia, police are searching for a missing man.
At this point in time, we're quite concerned about his safety. if in fact he has come off his motorbike on the road.
He says the man was not reported missing until last week because his flatmate had thought Snabel had taken off on his bike for a few days. However, he became concerned when Snabel failed to collect his pay from work.
He had come straight from a party the previous night, and we understand that he was still under the effects of alcohol.
Police fear the missing man may have ridden off a cliff while travelling along the many treacherous roads in the area.
The roommate said the last time he saw Paul was when he was leaving the party, drunk. While his girlfriend Karen said the last time she saw him was when she kicked him out of her friend's house. He was supposed to be helping clean, but instead he got drunk. Had Paul been involved in an accident? Was he now lying, injured in a ditch somewhere? In the weeks following his disappearance, police began finding pieces of his red and white Yamaha motorcycle. Large pieces of the bike, like the fuel tank and handlebars, were found, as well as some of the small parts, like the electric cables and screws. Those were found in small plastic bags. These weren't bags you'd purchase at a store. Ends up that they were made for the State Australian Electrical Commission, and weren't generally available to the public. This small piece of evidence meant something. Police weren't really sure what. Police decided to circle back and speak to Paul's girlfriend, Karen, which is when they found out that she had checked herself into the hospital. Karen was clearly dealing with some sort of emotional trauma, which is when Karen told police that what she had said before about Paul coming to her friend's house to clean up after the party, well, that wasn't actually true. The truth slowly then worked its way out. Karen says just days before Paul was last seen that she had afternoon tea with her sister and two longtime friends named Irene and Rona. During this conversation, she confided in them that she wanted to get away from Paul because he wouldn't take no for an answer. During this conversation, a joke was made that they should kill him, an idea that her friend Irene really just seemed to latch onto. Irene was a large, dominating woman. Her husband was afraid of her. Everyone was afraid of her. And for Irene, Paul Snabel became an obsession. A few days after Paul was last seen, Irene told Karen that she didn't have to worry about him anymore. The truth is, a few days earlier at that house party that Paul's roommate had last seen him at, Irene and Rona had been making devilish plans. Rona showed up at that party and told Paul that she had just come from seeing Karen and that Karen wanted to have sex with him. So, no surprise, he left the party. When he arrived, neither Karen or her sister were there, but Irene and Rona were there, and for the next few hours gave him plenty of whiskey until the time was right, which is when they injected him with a syringe of amphetamines and battery acid. A toxic cocktail. But it didn't work. Karen's friend Irene was now frustrated. She had tried killing Paul and it didn't work, so she called an audible. While Paul was getting drunk on her whiskey, she told a friend of hers that was at the house, a man that she said was weak, to take a bat and kill Paul with it. The man attacked, but it still wasn't enough. As he sat slumped in the chair with blood streaming down his face, Irene complained that of course she'd have to finish him off. She ended up asphyxiating him by tying a plastic bag over his head, and then made her husband dispose of his body. And she might have gotten away with it if it weren't for Paul's girlfriend Karen cracking under the pressure, and because of those pesky plastic bags that they found with the pieces of Paul's motorcycle. Police were able to connect those plastic bags to Irene's husband. See, he worked for the Australian Electric Commission. So, when police showed up at their house and checked their garage, they found dozens of those plastic bags, along with small paint chips, which just happened to be a match to Paul's Yamaha motorcycle. Paul Snabel's body was discovered wrapped in a tarp a few weeks after he disappeared. And everyone from Paul's girlfriend, Karen, to the killer, Irene, were found guilty. It's true. Murder doesn't care if you're good or bad.
This winter, fly Minneapolis-St. Paul to Ireland with Aer Lingus. Fly direct to Dublin and enjoy Ireland's warm hospitality, incredible food, history and culture. Smart says fill your heart with Ireland. Smart flies Aer Lingus. Book now at aerlingus.com.